Children of the Sun is the name of the game and the cult within. Like all cults, Children of the Sun will fall by their own hand. In this case, it's giving their destructive powers to one of their own members. The lucky, or rather unlucky member in question is a teenage girl who I will nickname Sharp because she's a sharpshooter. The reason I said she's the unlucky member who received these powers is because they seem to be triggered or awakened within someone under emotional stress. The story gets muddy at certain points since the cutscenes are flashbacks played out of order. Somewhere in the rural parts of the north, our story starts off at Sharp's lowest point, with her father gone and her mother somewhere in the control of the cult. You take your father's rifle and go out hunting. It's the perfect time to go hunting as cult members have come just in time to investigate what happened to Sharp and her father. The first level teaches the player about flanking to find the right angle, marking targets, and Sharp's power to alter the path of her bullets. Keep in mind, that was bullet time. Sharp sniped 4 men with a single bullet in less than a second. It becomes quickly apparent just how powerful these abilities are, and we haven't even unlocked all mechanics yet. Things ramp up quickly with the next level, showing the cultists not only burning down your shack with your father in it, but also surrounding homes. Sharp chooses to enforce the golden rule. The next cutscene gives some context as to why you and your father left the cult. Your mother had been indoctrined and brainwashed by the leader, and had to be added to his mandatory cult concubine. Man, this is just like the leader of Waco, or the Manson family, or Jonestown. Oh, I'm seeing a running theme with these cults. Lucky for us, Sharp believes in the good old-fashioned family values and teaches the cult members that polygamy is bad. At this point, Sharp no longer has a home, with the cult burning it down, so she has to get breakfast herself. This level is a fun way of showing us that we can shoot birds to gain a higher vantage point, adding a huge layer of verticality to the game. That's right, we will be using birds and fish as positional resources. Save your birds for that really hard to land shot on an enemy that is far off on the map. We also learn from this level that Sharp and her father aren't the only rogue cult members. It looks like they kill all unloyal members. I mean, hey, the cult leader might be a polygamist, rapist, and murderer, but at least he doesn't discriminate. Aww. Back to the game, and more specifically, its art style. You would think the rough edge and low poly aesthetic would make it hard to spot targets, especially in a sniping game where clear visibility is crucial for gameplay. But thanks to great color choice and level layouts, you never feel lost. The bright greenish yellow of the cult members and their glowing eyes contrast greatly against the dark blue environments. One thing I picked up on subconsciously while playing was that I was always aiming for the highest point on the enemy to get the best possible vantage point. In other words, the game incentivizes you to go for headshots in order to make the next shot easier to hit. Headshots increase your score at the same time too. The next level, Old Home, shows us that Sharp almost looked fondly upon living in the cult. That at one point it may have been peaceful, up until learning about its true nature. The text below the intro shows that she's not only heartbroken by the Culptrank family, but that she's also fucking pissed at them too. Our next cutscene shows a flashback of Sharp and her father, both badly injured in the cult's prison. Sharp, while trying to draw a mask to hide her facial injuries, unintentionally uses her innate powers to kill the guards at the door. She had also accidentally knocked over a candle that burns down their prison. In the flashback, she pushes her father in a wheelbarrow to the shack we saw at the beginning of the game. Here, Sharp makes her mask out of paper mache and hones her powers deeper. Back in the present, we get to see Sharp really use her powers and lift a fucking car above a man's head. Dropping the car on the man isn't good enough according to Sharp, and would rather he burn in a fiery explosion. In the next cutscene, we get to see what's happening within the cult during the present. This isn't a flashback for once. One cult member, wearing glasses, who I will nickname Glasses, is investigating the old home that Sharp looked fondly back on before killing the inhabitants. Using the victim's entry and exit wounds and some chalk lines, they're able to piece together that the cult members were killed by one bullet. Glasses doesn't seem perplexed, but more so troubled. as if she knows the answer to who did this. Up until this point, Sharp has either been on the run from the cult or fighting back in the first few levels since they came to her home and burned it down. Sharp has only been playing defense this whole time, but these coming levels finally show her going on the offensive against the cult. On the map, we can see she's digging deeper into enemy territory, and we've hit our first major stronghold, a watchtower filled with guards. This level in particular is tricky, as the floor of the watchtower makes it difficult to hit the targets below. To show that Sharp is finally going on the offensive against the cult, Sharp is able to circle the entire level and flank from any direction. Despite the cult's power, this level makes Sharp out to be the hunter, circling them looking for the right time to strike. No, like we literally have to wait. This is a waiting puzzle. It's our first and only waiting puzzle. We have to wait for a guard to walk up the stairs so we can chain our shot from above to the guards below. The next flashback we get is of Sharp hunting with her father, and hey, it's glasses. Sharp misses her very first shot. Lucky for her, she's a natural. Sharp got angry from missing her very first shot and redirected the bullet mid-flight. It's hard to tell if this was her first time using her powers because cutscenes are out of order, but all three members seem shocked about what happened here. This is what troubles Glasses when she finds her fellow dead members in the present. In the next level, we clear a bridge and my curiosity gets the best of me. I try redirecting the bullet back towards Sharp herself. You can hit yourself and there's an everlasting blood cloud that blocks your view. Maybe the developers didn't want you seeing a shot teenager, but that can't be true because this happens later in the very following dream sequence. In that same dream sequence, we get to see the cult members patting Sharp on the head and giving her fake kind words about how great the cult is and how she has belonging here, and that she looked up to the cult leader as a father. That this betrayal hurts just as much as the stab wound he would give her. Sharp isn't just pissed at the cult that they took her parents, she's pissed they treated her like family only to betray her when the leader saw fit. These crazy actions by the cult leader has started to turn more members away, not just you. At a factory the cult has taken over, we see a cult member trying to get through a checkpoint, and the subtext for the level implies that there's been discretions going on within the cult. At this point, we've also unlocked a new power that lets us completely change trajectory mid-flight as opposed to only 45 degrees. This trajectory change has to be charged up first by getting 2 hits on an enemy's glowy bits. This mechanic I like. It gives the player a reason to go for more than just headshots and aim at other parts of the body too. The game does a good job of incentivizing new abilities, as the factory has a handful of winding rooms that require a trajectory change. This is the first building this complex we've tackled. Sharp chews through the factory and moves on to a train yard. Meanwhile, a cult member brings up the theory to the leader that Sharp might be the one causing all this. The cult leader tries to snuff the idea that an enemy could have the cult's psychic powers and kills the theorist. Our next roadblock on the map is a train yard. This level I actually really like. Our bullets don't instantly fly to the target, they have to bob and weave, and we have to guide our bullet through speeding trains in order to complete the level. Reminds me of the first shot of Gemini Man. My only critique is sometimes while holding the bullet midair, I'm waiting for the train to go by just to land the perfect shot. I realized Superhot actually had the same problem and fixed it. While standing still in Superhot, you could just hold down a button to speed up time instead of being stuck in slow-mo. I think this game would benefit greatly from something like that. Ah shit, I said something bad about the game. Let me say something positive. I really like how the bullet path recap at the end of the levels looks like cult scribblings. It combines a cool gameplay element with the art style of the game perfectly. Let's get back to the story. Glasses explains to the cult leader that Sharp is the one behind the killing, and that she's an actual threat. Leader storms off in a rage. At this point, Glasses has seen the most of what Sharp is capable of, and has a vision of Sharp in her mask. Glasses and the cult members she's with seem troubled, as if questioning their own loyalty. The next couple levels introduce 2 new enemies, an armored guard that requires our bullet to fly more distance and pick up speed in order to kill. The second enemy is actually a psychic user that can deter bullets. Similar to Sharp, the enemy psychics can only focus on 1 bullet at a time, and need to recharge their abilities after moving 1 bullet. The way to kill them is to send the bullet just outside of their field of influence, so they waste their energy. Then we can make our bullet do a U-turn by using a trajectory change or just hitting someone behind him. By this point, the cult has taken over factories, churches, a military watchtower, and a couple towns on the map. It makes you wonder just how big this cult is and how fast their influence spreads. In the next flashback, we see that Sharp's mother was forced into the concubine, literally taken from her family in the middle of the night. Sharp's memories continue to not only fuel her rage, but also distort her reality. Signs and letterings are distorted, words like store become stop, and words like records become remember. It's a crazy touch I didn't pick up on until the distortions became too strong to not notice. Sharp is becoming more Lunic by the day. On a brighter note, what is objectively the most fun level, Chasing Lies, is up next. It's nothing but us, a bunch of gas tanks, and a lot of bare heads. Even though they're all moving enemies, Chasing Lies gives you all tools and mechanics to your disposal, and this is where the game really shines. You can choose to take out all the enemies with headshots normally, or you can hit the gas tank of their car and kill a bunch at once. You can shoot the driver, just the driver, now the enemies are careening off the side of the road. You can veer one of the cars into another and kill both cars. You can hit one gas tank next to another and kill two cars at once. You can actually just send the bullet past all of the enemies and hit them all from the front to make things easier. There are so many ways to approach this, it feels like every option is viable and it is so much fun to just play around with. It's one of the few levels I've replayed over and over again just to get a high score. The craziest part is, this is just a flat plain with a bunch of naked enemies. No buildings, no slopes, no cover to hide behind, just the cult, the sunset, and your bullet. To top it all off, it comes with the most revelating flashback too. At a sacrificial meeting, the leader orders for Sharp to be sacrificed, but the father intervenes. One cult member shoots our father in the leg, blowing it clean off. Sharp is immediately sent into a frenzy where her powers take a knife and kill the one cult member. This is the first time Sharp used her powers to kill a human. Sharp's mother retaliates and scratches the cult leader across the face. Another cult member takes the shotgun and hits the mother. The leader takes the knife and slashes Sharp back. Her father and her are put into the prison we saw earlier in the game. So now we know how our father lost his leg, why we see flashbacks of the leader with a cut in his eye, and why Sharp wears a mask. There's no time for the player to collect themselves as we're up against one of the hardest levels in the game. A military outpost with more than a dozen enemies. Similar to Chasing Lies, there is multiple ways to approach this, but some ways are less viable than others, and the main building is kind of hard to navigate. Not to mention, you're on a timer before more enemies show up, so if you want to make things easier, you have to be fast. Lucky for us, the timer is affected by the bullet time and slows down greatly. Inside the building, we can find out that the cult has been trying to track us, and they have a map of the buildings that look similar to ours. It won't matter though as we execute them and move on to the final level. We get a cutscene in the present, the sect of the cult that believes Sharp to be the true psychic user. They paint her face over the leaders. Naturally, the leader isn't happy about this. I didn't mark the leader, by the way. When you start this level, Sharp is livid and briefly takes control away from you just to mark the leader. We have to take out each psychic user before we can go to the next layer of the psychic barrier. The first layer is fairly easy to break down, but the second one requires us to use all mechanics. Spotting all enemies in the huts before shooting, hitting birds to get a better view, waiting for the enemy car to get in the right spot, trajectory changing, speeding up bullets, break through armor, until finally... As the true psychic user, we now rule the children of the sun. I believe a recap is due, considering all cutscenes are played out of order. The story starts off with Sharp's family wanting to get away from the problems of modern society and resort to a non-electronic using religious group known as the Children of the Sun. Their leader considers himself to be the Messiah and most believe him. The Children of the Sun's hospitality stops at Sharp's family when they take her mother for the leader's concubine. While the mother is away, Sharp is taken hunting with Glasses and her father, where she unlocks her own psychic powers. Whether the forces of the cult intentionally or unintentionally gave them to her is unknown. At the next cult meeting, we can see that the mother is fully indoctrinated into the concubine, which of course causes the father to lose loyalty to the cult. At their next meeting, where the cult is preparing to sacrifice animals as well as a person, the leader chooses Sharp to be sacrificed. The father intervenes with a knife, but a cult member shoots his leg off. Sharp's anger manifests her powers once again and kills the cult member who shot her father. The leader tries to subdue Sharp, and Sharp herself is punished with a slash across the face. Both her and her now crippled father are imprisoned. Sharp makes her papier-mâché mask, and practices her powers against some guards. She accidentally burns down the prison and escorts her father to the shack we see at the very start of the game. While in the shack, the father commits suicide, knowing he doomed his wife, child, and himself by bringing his family to the children of the sun. Sharp, who now also has nothing left to lose, takes up her father's rifle and sets out to get revenge on the cult. Her campaign is merciless, as she cuts through the territories like a bullet through butter. During which, the cult, thanks to glasses, learns that it's Sharp who is killing their members, and that her powers are amongst the strongest of all of them. The leader learns of this and orders all those who believe this theory to be killed and their bodies hidden. This and for Sharp to be killed. As the story goes on, Sharp devolves deeper into lunacy, from the combination of her powers as well as losing everything she cared about. The deeper she spirals down, the stronger her powers become. This actually gives her new abilities. On the cult side, the sect that believes in Sharp, led by Glasses, is growing, as the mass killings are now undeniable. The cult as a whole is growing as well, with them taking over several towns, including one with the Department of Security. Whichever state they've taken over is still unknown. The cult leader orders his troops to start wearing armor to deter Sharp and also deploy their own psychic users out into the field. None of these stop Sharp in her campaign as she reaches the leader's temple. A fair amount of the cult now believes Sharp to be the Messiah and even etches her face into the temple. The leader has one last stand with all of his psychics, but their force is nothing compared to the violent river that is Sharp's aim. Sharp takes the final shot and rectifies revenge upon the leader. Glasses and the remainder of the cult crown Sharp as the new leader and rejoice in their hopefully less tyrannical future. We don't know what happens next, whether Sharp kills off the rest of the cult or leads them into a new direction. An unexpected but nice ending. Over the course of the 7 to 8 hour campaign, I never felt like the game was overstaying its welcome. It didn't feel too short, didn't feel too long, just right. It gives you enough levels to play with each new mechanic you learn, cutscenes are stylish and convey the story well, which is impressive considering we were dropped into the middle of the story and had to piece things together. Even though the game as a whole lacks replayability, I did revisit some levels. It's an accomplishment for a game that not only can you get players to complete the game, but come back for seconds, even if it is just for parts of it. Something I said in my last video is that indie developers should make sequels for the game they strike gold with. So I hope that we see a Children of the Sun 2 or something similar, where the mechanics are explored further. Like, imagine if we can control more than just bullets. Sharp did raise cars and rubble. What if we could arrange hittable props for ourselves to solve puzzles? Ideas for another time. Until then, I'll see you in the next story.